Ace. Hello all, thanks for joining. Just give us about 1 or 2 minutes. We're just going to let a couple more minutes for people to join and then we'll get started. Okay, we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so and then we will start. Okay, we'll kick off. So first of all, welcome everyone to today's webinar on optimizing Oracle databases with Amazon FSx for NetApp ONTAP. My name is Martin White. I'm a senior go-to-market storage specialist at AWS. I look after UK and Ireland, and we have 3 of my colleagues that support the rest of EMEA that we can contact for anybody needing further contact details. I'm joined today by Semyon from NetApp and Promise, who's one of our senior storage specialist SAs. So thanks for both, and they're going to drive most of this presentation today. Before we start, I'd just like to say thank you to NetApp for arranging this webinar. So everyone's aware it is being recorded and it's got a Q&A, so you can ask us questions. We'll be monitoring that in the chat as we go through, and we'll interrupt and get a Q&A bit at the end for anything that's needed. We've got a really packed agenda today, so I'm going to be brief with the introduction, but I just wanted to share why this topic is exciting to us at AWS. FSx for ONTAP is one of our fastest growing storage services, and there's a number of reasons for that, and we're going to cover quite a few of those today. It's also really important to note FSx for NetApp ONTAP is a first-party AWS service, so it's fully managed by us. It means you get the reliability and the security and the integration you can expect from any native AWS service, but it's combined with the enterprise storage capabilities that you know if you're a NetApp customer already of NetApp ONTAP. If you don't know NetApp, we'll show you the cool stuff it can do today. So for self-managed Oracle environments in the cloud specifically, combination's game-changing. You're going to get performance, data management, and efficiency features that can help your Oracle workload delivered as a fully managed AWS service, and you'll retain control of your Oracle environment. So Semyon, if we can go to the next slide, please. This is covering today's agenda. It's going to show you exactly where we can benefit. There's a live demo that we're going to show for you, and we'll dive into the specific challenges. We'll also set the scene of where FSx for ONTAP fits into the AWS portfolio when it comes to databases. We're going to show you all the benefits. You'll see and touch and feel it. Feel free to ask us questions. The key theme of it is all about the value that it can bring, reducing cost, reducing time, application consistent snapshots. We'll cover all of that for you now. So we got one quick poll just to kick off. So Leah, if you could kick that up, please. And we'll give you 30 seconds. Please answer that, and then we'll take it from there. And I'm going to hand over to Promise shortly. Okay, hopefully everyone's clicked. If we can see the results, please, Leah. Okay, so we've got a good split of on-premises only and hybrid are hedging it, with some cloud only as well. So it's almost a third split, which is quite interesting. So the reason for today is we'll cover all messaging regardless of where you are in your journey. So Leah, if you can close the poll, appreciate it. And Promise, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, Martin. So yeah, that was a very interesting result because it just really explains why do we have customers wanting to do different types of database in terms of managing database options, self-managed or fully managed database options. Is because we still have a lot of data in hybrid environments, in on-premises data centers or in the cloud. So I think the cloud is a small percentage, that it was less than a quarter. So I think this session is very relevant because a lot of organizations want to move workloads and data into AWS or into the cloud. So AWS offers a range of database services. Let's start there. And that could be relational database services or NoSQL databases. So from a relational database point of view, that's services like Aurora or Oracle. From a NoSQL databases, that's services like DynamoDB, DocumentDB. We also have in-memory databases, time series databases, and customers really benefit from the family of databases we have. The offering really helps businesses grow because businesses change over time. You might create an app that only needs a structured way of storing data, but over time you might need to store time series data. Today, with the advance of AI, customers might want to import data into vector databases to help with AI workloads. So yeah, customers have different types of database needs, which is exactly why we have those various services. But keep in mind that being self-managed or being fully managed, there are cases where customers need to have self-managed. And that's because sometimes they want more control. They want more flexibility or scalability. And by control, it's just around what's the type of hardware, what's the version of the database. Flexibility is around what licensing options, what tools do I have, what integration do I have with existing services or applications that use the data that's stored in the database. What's my networking option? What's the account distribution model? Also, scalability is around where managed services don't really scale to where customers want or need to be, or they need extra performance or various requirements where they need to scale beyond a managed service. So there are reasons why customers might need to deploy their own self-managed database environments. If we go on to the next slide, customers have the option of doing this with RDS for relational databases specifically, and we have a family of databases. So Oracle, Postgres, MySQL, Microsoft SQL, and even now, just a few months ago, we announced the Oracle at AWS database service. So customers who have Exadata environments on-prem can move those database workloads into AWS in a fully managed way. For self-managed, on the other hand, customers will have to think carefully and choose compute and storage to back their self-managed database environment. So that's where you start with for self-managed. You have to think about the types of EC2 instances, which in AWS, if you look at the current count, there are over 900 EC2 instances. But you'll focus more on the types that are more suitable for databases. I guess that's where you start with. But from a storage point of view, there are file systems and also block storage that you can choose from. So there's EBS and then there's FSX for file systems. In this session, what we'll do is walk you through where you start from. Let's move on to the next slide. We'll start by talking about some considerations. For managed database environments, you want the service provider to provide a fully managed offering. You want the elasticity where you pay on demand and you get the elasticity in terms of scalability. You get that as a managed experience. In the self-managed world, you want some types of flexibility. And so it could be the database engine offered in the managed side doesn't exist, so you have to actually run that yourself. You might want to fine-tune the configuration of your database. It could be as simple as bringing on your own licensing. Let's just bring back the slides. You might want to bring your own license from on-prem environments. So the key considerations you have to think about when you are setting up a self-managed environment. Just beyond these considerations, though, there are other needs customers have, and those are things around how the data is stored, things around how you create copies of databases, specific ways of backing up your databases, specific ways of configuring multi-site, multi-AZ, multi-region setup. And we have a great partnership with NetApp, and we have a service called FSX for ONTAP. And this, in the next couple of slides, Simeon will explain how FSX for ONTAP plays a very key role in enabling customers run self-managed Oracle databases on AWS. So I'll hand over to Simeon.
Thank you, Promise. So hi, everyone. My name is Simeon Mazor. I'm a Senior Product Enablement Specialist at NetApp. And before we talk about FSx for ONTAP, let's first talk about the challenges for running databases. Now, essentially, no matter where the database are running, on premises or in the cloud, there's usually four main challenges that came up. First is about resiliency. How can I ensure that my database is highly available, that the data is protected, and the application gets the database when it needs to get? So this is the first thing. How can I maintain the business continuity from the database perspective? Then to maintain low latency, what are the performance that my database gets to reply in time to the application? Third challenge is about database refreshing and maintaining a point across different databases. Any organization has more than a single databases, and there's a challenge in keeping in sync all those environments, and then also how long it takes to replicate this data and how much capacity and cost it adds. And then fourth challenge is about cost optimization, which is always relevant, right? So luckily, AWS has the well-architected framework, which provides guidelines to build the most secure, high-performant, resilient, and efficient infrastructure possible. It provides consistent approach for customers and AWS partners to evaluate architecture and offer guidelines for implementing designs that can scale with your application needs over time. So if we look on the challenges that we just mentioned and try to align them with those 6 pillars of the well-architected framework, see great alignment, because resiliency is related, high availability and protection meets the reliability pillar, the low latency meets the performance pillar, the cloning meets the operational excellence pillar, and of course, cost optimization goes with cost optimizations. So now I would like to, now that we covered the challenges, I would like to have our next poll and to ask you guys, before I introduce FSx for ONTAP, we would like to know how much are you familiar with the service. So we have 4 options. First is I already use it as a storage for my database. Second is I use it for other workloads. Third, I have learned about it, but I haven't used it yet. And fourth, I have very little knowledge about it. So you're probably somewhere in among those 4 options. Please click the most relevant option for you. We'll give it another couple of seconds. And yeah, Liat, I think we can now look at the results. So yeah, actually they're kind of split apart. The majority, actually third and third, either use it for other workloads or learned about it but haven't used it yet. Another third is having little knowledge about it, and the smallest group is already used it for databases, which is cool because we know that Martin said FSx for ONTAP is the one of the fastest growing services on AWS, and databases is one of the linear workloads, so it's not surprising. All right, so I guess there's a split of your knowledge about what FSx for ONTAP is. Let's align and make sure we're all on the same page. So Amazon FSx for ONTAP, it's the full official name, is a fully managed storage service by AWS. It is an intelligent storage service for well-architected databases on AWS. It provides powerful protection, performance with exceptional cost efficiency. And in the next couple of minutes, I will explain what does those 3 or 4 things means. To make it clear, Martin also mentioned that FSx for ONTAP is an AWS service. It's built by AWS, maintained by AWS, supported by AWS, and everything. Like it's fully AWS service, part of the storage portfolio, part of the FSx family. Now it's important to mention FSx stands for file system. However, FSx supports provides both file storage and block storage, which is the most relevant for our session today. So the name can be a bit misleading. It's FSx for ONTAP, but it provides fully block storage, which is very important. Now, it is an AWS service that leverages all the technology that NetApp has developed over the last 30 years and used by numerous of companies, with also by the most fortune companies in the world. So there's a lot of technology that was invented into it and now available as a fully managed service on AWS. If we group the capabilities that it provides, so generally we can group it into 5 main pillars. First is accessibility. Then it provides protection and security capabilities, data security, price performance capabilities, and data mobilities and copies. Now we can cover this in a couple of hours and even more than that. Today, what we're going to do is just to dive a bit deeper into those technologies that are most relevant for running databases, and particularly Oracle databases in the cloud. So if we look again on the 4 pillars that we mentioned: reliability, performance efficiency, operational excellence, and cost optimization, now let's open each of them and see what FSx for ONTAP has to offer to overcome them and to optimize operations.
Semyon, sorry to interrupt. We've got one question from Sanjay, which says, is ONTAP for databases only for self-managed databases or not for RDS?
So the answer is yes. What we cover, we're focused today on self-managed offering, and currently FSx for ONTAP available as an underlying storage for self-managed, right? It, by the way, not only because it's self-managed, not only for Oracle. Today we focus on Oracle. It essentially can be for any self-managed databases, but currently it's in the scope of self-managed options. All right, so when we talk about how FSx for ONTAP can enhance database protection, first, it's highly available. Now, the high availability is by default. Any FSx for ONTAP is highly available, and this high availability can be spread within the same availability zone or across different availability zones, providing even higher layer of availability if there's any kind of physical failure. What's important to know is, we said FSx for ONTAP provides block storage, and being shared block storage available across availability zone is unique to FSx ONTAP. It's the only storage service on AWS that provides this high availability across availability zone. So this is the first layer for resiliency. Then we have the layers for data protection. So the first layer is snapshot. FSx for ONTAP provides the highly efficient NetApp snapshot, which are also application aware. So we will demo that, how this can be done, but those snapshots created instantly do not affect the production environment, and there's no need for log shipping activities because they are already synced with the database itself. So the service quiesces the databases and then takes the snapshot. This is the first layer. It can serve as a logical failure on the same local file system. Then the next layer is shipping these snapshots to another FSx for ONTAP file system, which provide independent point-in-time copy of the data. This can be within the same region or in a different region, supporting DR scenarios. Those snapshots can be moved between systems with a built-in highly efficient replication agent called SnapMirror. So there's no need for external tool that sometimes also affects the performance. It's all built in and highly efficient to move those snapshots between different systems. Then another layer of data protection provided with support of backup, which integrates with different services within AWS, and essentially all those capabilities provide the option to backup in seconds and recover in minutes. We see in many cases very demanding requirements for RPO and RTO, and FSx makes the difference for them. We see terabytes of data being backup in seconds, recovered in minutes, because all the highly efficient technology that FSx for ONTAP brings for that. So this is the capabilities related to the reliability. And before I go on, I would like to ask Promise, you're having discussions with customers on a daily basis from an AWS perspective, where usually customers are more concerned and where FSx for ONTAP helps them to meet or overcome those concerns when we talk about particularly about the protection and availability?
Yeah, good question. So what I see customers really excited about is just the core features in ONTAP. We expose those same features in AWS. So most storage services in AWS don't have basic snapshot features. If you look at EFS, S3, we only have snapshot on FSx file systems. And for you to back up a 10 terabyte database, on-premises customers use snapshots. When they move workloads into the cloud, they want to use snapshots. It's those little things, snapshots, and to be able to create quick backups and create efficient replication. Those features really a game changer for customers who are moving large workloads into AWS. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you. One last note I would like to mention that kind of offloading the data protection capability to the storage layer, which in this case is intelligent storage, having all those different capabilities. Also, there's no need to use the EC2 power that runs there. So it's also places where you can optimize the workload. We'll touch a bit upon that when we talk about cost optimization as well. So those are the different layers for data protection, high availability. Moving to the next pillar for low latency. So what's important to understand here is that FSx provide high performance on several layers. It's starting with high throughput of the network I/O, supporting 36 gigabytes per second. In fact, it can be even higher, but higher than that. But we'll say this number as this is the most common and the recommendation. Then FSx ONTAP has unique in-memory cache and NVMe cache to make sure that the frequently accessed data is enhanced with another layer of performance. And the disk itself are utilized for our SSD disk, provides hundreds of thousands of IOPS, and all those capability together make sure that the database maintain low latencies. And all those parameters can be configurable, scaled up or down, so then can be optimized for different environments. So this is for the performance efficiency pillar. And we're moving next to the operational excellence. And here is something unique that FSx ONTAP provides. Any organization has more than a single database. The additional copies can be for development, testing, pre-production, schema validation, or other needs. And typically, each additional copy requires the same amount storage as the original one. However, FSx ONTAP has a different approach for that. As we said, it provides the highly efficient snapshots, which are read-only point-in-time images of the data. So those snapshots are lightweight and created instantly. And based on this snapshot, new environments can be created with thin clones and span up from the snapshot without impacting performance, capacity, or costs. So those snapshots spin up for another copies of the data. There's no data movement involved in that. This technology called flex clone. And there's only pointers from the clones to the production data. So from the database perspective, it gets a full writable copy of the data. For him, it's another full copy of the data, which he can write for. But from the storage perspective, there's no data movement involved in that, meaning no additional capacity and therefore no additional cost, and they spin up instantly. The only capacity started to be accumulated when there is writing from the database to the environment. So only the changes starting to accumulate additional capacity. So as we said, the environment's created in seconds, and they add no zero capacity from as it starts, and only the changes adding additional capacity. And it means that instead of having 50 or 500 copies of the data, you have essentially one. We'll talk about the cost impact in a moment, but first, it's shortening the development cycle, because the different teams that need to access those different environments and those different databases can access them faster. So they can work faster, they can do the task faster, essentially shortening the development cycle and shortening time to market. So this is a unique feature which makes a lot of difference to customers running databases. And then we move to the fourth pillar around cost optimization. We generally say that customers can reduce costs by up to 50%. In fact, we see organization saving even more than that. So it comes from different layers that the cost can be optimized. The first layer is technologies to reduce data footprint, starting with storage efficiencies like deduplication and compression, which makes sure that the original data is less than the full 100%. Then the snapshot, as we mentioned, are highly efficient, so it also contributes to optimizing the operation. And there's also tiering technology that allows to move from the performance tier to the capacity tier and optimize environment and the storage accumulated with the database operations. Then we have thin cloning, which can be a real game changer because, as we said, it's not only shortening the development cycles, but also significantly impacts the cloud bill by, instead of having 550, 500 copies of the environments, essentially there will be only one because the first copy is less than 100%, and then additional copies just adding a fraction of the data of the capacity. And next, in terms of optimizing the cost, as we said, the performance characteristic and configurable. So the environments that do not require the highest level of performance, which of course would come with the cost, can be configured to lower performance levels and therefore save on cost for those environments. Two more interesting aspects, which not related directly to the storage, but allows by using FS6 ONTAP. First is because FS6 ONTAP is kind of external to the selection of the EC2 type. So it uses the network bandwidth, therefore allowing to utilize less compute and select the most fitting EC2 type to the workload, regardless of the IOPS that's required, regardless of the throughput, regardless of the storage capacity. So this is places where you can optimize the selection of the EC2 type, which also impact the licenses, which is also nice to see that by separating compute and storage concerns, and also offloading some of the tasks from the compute to the storage with all the replication and data protection tasks, let the storage do that, you can optimize both compute and the database licenses. So this is the last pillar. And again, here I would like to ask you, Promise, again, where do you see customer benefiting the most from all those different layers of cost optimization?
So I think customers have the elasticity, like day one sales pitch when it comes to the cloud elasticity when you come into the cloud, and from day one you can spin 10, 100, hundreds of servers. Around the storage side, you just mentioned cloning, is the speed, like you just mentioned. Customers can't do this level of cloning with other storage services. I'm going to mention it, but EBS just announced the ability to create clones of EBS volumes, but it's a full fat clone. It's quick, we can create it quickly, but over time we'll lazy load and fill up that EBS volume. FSX is completely different. It's a thin, efficient clone that happens in seconds. So again, I'm just going to share the same point you just mentioned, is the efficiencies, and we'll talk about a customer who benefited from that by creating refreshes 10 times faster than their on-prem environments.
Cool, thank you. So just before we go to that example, let's have another poll. Yeah, if you can launch it. We would like to ask our audience, what do you think, what do you believe is the most important capability that FS6 provide for database operation? Is it the cloning, the data protection, the high performance, or cost optimization? So take a couple of seconds to reply to that. We really would be glad to know where you see it fits the most. Is it the ability to clone the databases, to create another copies in seconds without adding additional capacity, the data protection for high availability across availability zone, the snapshot, cross-region replication, backup, whether it's the high performance capabilities or the option to optimize the costs? So let's see the results. Cool. So again, it kind of splits between the different options. Around third saying that the cloning is the most important capability. Another 26% saying cost optimization, and then we have 21% for both data protection and 21% for high performance. So it's always a mix. And the nice thing that you doesn't need to choose. You get all of them by selecting FSx for ONTAP as your underlying storage. So promise, now we get to the customer example. Please take it away.
Yes. So I'm going to quickly talk about Pearson. And if you've ever done an IT certification or you're in the education space, Pearson actually work with industries. So they're not primarily, their major industry is education, but they work with colleges, universities, industries, providing certification services. And I'm sure it's a kind of a household name. But they needed to move their core application and the backend data set into AWS, and they wanted to use a service that they can easily create multiple development environments based on the same application and data set. If you think about the content here, it's more the backend systems serving sort of like a CRM system for their for the application itself in terms of serving users globally with their exam experiences. What they did was they used FSx ONTAP for the backend storage system and offloaded, basically let AWS handle the storage management. So in terms of managing the terabyte size data set they have for delivering their courses and exams, FSx basically provides that infrastructure, and they were quickly able to realize value in terms of the time it takes for them to refresh data clones of the application environment. So they were able to do that 10 times faster. Coming off on-prem hardware into AWS, they were also able to drive 3 times more performance in terms of reducing latency, driving more IOPS and throughput, because basically AWS leverages our hardware, our engineered cloud infrastructure to run FSx. In terms of the technology that's serving FSx is really AWS's hardware and technology. So this is just an example of one customer. There are thousands of customers today who use FSx across multiple industries, from customers who have database workloads to other workloads. Let's move on to the demo. And just before I jump into the demo, I'll just talk about two specific architectures. Usually, I think someone asked this question in chat. I was just trying to respond to them. In terms of what customers do with single AZ or multi-AZ, when customers rely on the database to do things like log shipping and database application level replication, some customers will deploy their databases in single AZ environments because they are fine with the level of replication available at the application level. So the database, so the handling replication in that case. But some customers really want to offload that from the database to the storage layer, just like Simeon mentioned. And we have multi-AZ file systems within the same region. Multi-AZ file systems are within the region, so two separate AZ, we synchronously replicate writes before we acknowledge to the database. So in this case, let's say, for example, something happens to one AZ, the data is always available in the second AZ, so they can just start the database, mount the volumes, start the database, and continue to access the same data set. So the data is resilient and durable with zero RPO across two AZs all the time. This is a very key point. So if customers then want to use storage-based replication, they can use that for, let's say, cross-region replication. There are different architectures customer might employ to run their Oracle workloads. But this is one thing we're seeing a lot of enterprises doing. So
if I may add, Promise.
Yeah, go on, please.
One of the nice benefits also in this architecture, once you offload it to the storage, that the compute can be in standby, and also again optimize like the spend on compute, because it doesn't have to be always on. Again, versus different architecture when you do it on the database layer. So this is also a place where you can optimize spend on compute and potentially also on licenses.
Yeah. So if we quickly run through an example, a demo, or just to show you the key points and the value around FSx ONTAP. So in this example, I've got two database servers. One is primary and one is secondary. And you can look at this as two separate AZs. And I also have two separate file systems in two separate AZs, two single AZ file systems in this example. And just going to show you just quickly query the database. It's not a large database. It's just a few gigabytes in size, but it's the well-known IMDb data set. So you can see a couple of tables there. What I want to do is show you exactly how easy it is to create backups and manage your database workloads. Again, FSx will provide block storage, but you can use tools NetApp provides to create snapshots and clones. In this example, you can see here, I have the hosts and the storage already integrated into NetApp's tool, the tool just to help you automate the database creation. It's called SnapCenter. Basically, you create policies, and those policies will contain retention and the way you want to store your data and for how long. In this example, you can see there I've got 0 backups. I'm just going to trigger an on-demand backup just for a demo, used an existing policy I created a few minutes ago. So with that policy, we've created a snapshot job. We can monitor the job just to see how long it takes. In the storage layer, snapshots really happen in under a second. But because we're creating an application of a snapshot, we have to quiesce the host in terms of stop the database or place the database in hot standby mode, and then create a snapshot and then unfreeze the database so you can continue to commit, update the tables. So it's quick. So if you look at the time it will take here to create it, it's a database level application aware snapshot. It will be 2 to 3 minutes. If you go to the storage system, you can see that the snapshots will exist. I'm using 2 separate volumes. It's always best practice to separate your logs and your data into separate volumes. So if you look here, you will see 2 separate snapshots for the logs and one for the database themselves. If you go to back to the SnapCenter client, you'll see now I have 2 backups, one for the logs and the backups. But really, that's how long it takes, whether it's a 1 terabyte, 10 terabyte, or even 100 gig database. It doesn't matter the size. You can easily, quickly create snapshots. For a restore example, I'm just going to simulate disaster by just dropping a few tables and restoring the database to a particular point in time based on that. So I'm just going to run a few SQL Plus queries just to drop some tables, illustrating basically a disaster. But just listing the existing databases, the existing tables. Here you can see I'm down from a couple of it, just only 3. So I've dropped about 4 of those tables. If you go back to SnapCenter, it's the same workflow for us to do restores. So we'll go back to SnapCenter to trigger a restore. I'm going to use a system change number to drive the restore in this case. But when you do restores in SnapCenter, you can do restores in different ways. All database files, pluggable databases, you can customize your restore to a particular point in time. You can do a restore without doing a full recovery. So SnapCenter gives you all the flexibility. I should have also mentioned that when you create backups in SnapCenter, you can also use SnapCenter to augment your existing RMM backups. SnapCenter can also create RMM catalogs of your backups, so it will drive your whole backup workflow or just complement it. We've done a restore. I think if you do a restore, you need to reset the logs and then mount the database so it's open for read write. So quickly there, you can see we've restored all the tables. In a few minutes, we've shown how to quickly do restores. And this again, irrespective of the size, 1, 10, 100 terabytes is the same workflow, the same amount of time. SnapCenter also gives you the ability to handle database refreshes and clone databases. In this example, I'm going to take the existing database and clone to a different server. So what SnapCenter is doing is it will create snapshot level clones, but also it can point those clones to separate database environments or separate development environments where you have your Oracle instances. So in this example here, again, we can follow exactly what's happening. But if you go down to the storage system, you'll see we're just taking a snapshot, creating a writable version of that snapshot, which is called a flex clone. I think Simeon did a great job explaining all that. But again, this will take just a few minutes because we have to use a new SID, Oracle SID, and mount the database to a server. So that takes a few API calls on both ends. Now you can see we have one clone. Just to show you, this is not just video. We'll log into the secondary server, change the variable just to match the actual Oracle SID, and then query the database in the secondary server. And you can see we have the exact same data set from snapshots. Well, I think that's just to show you the core functionalities. But I think one thing to note is Snap Center is provided free of charge. You don't have to use Snap Center if you have well-versed backup workflows, but you can still leverage the same database level snapshots FSx provides in terms of quick database environments, clones, and backups. And one thing I also need to mention is you can take those snapshots and use them for replication to a secondary region or a different region. So customers leverage the snapshots in many ways. I think with that, let's just summarize what we've learned, and then Simeon will also talk about NetApp's workload factory, which helps automate FSx file system lifecycle, creating the file systems, and also managing your database environments. So back to you, Simeon.
Thank you, Promise. It's always impressive to see the speed of how those backup and restore can be done, and then like automatically available without any log shipping activities. So let's summarize what we discussed so far. And if there's one thing I would like you to take from this session, it would be this. You can optimize your self-managed Oracle databases on AWS by using FSx for ONTAP. It will provide high performance to maintain low latency with high throughput, high IOP, and unique smart caching capabilities. It provides the fast cloning capabilities to create new database environments and perform database refreshes quickly and with near zero additional cost. It provides powerful protection to meet even the most strictest RPO and RTO with application-aware snapshot, disaster recovery, and backup capabilities. And then while having all that, it will also optimize cost. It's not one against the other. It's coming all together, and we see customer reducing costs by 50%. We see 65%, very impressive numbers. And this is achieved by using the thin cloning technology, by ability to use fewer EC2 instances, and then to utilize the storage efficiency technology. So if that sounds good to you and you ask yourself, all right, so what's next? What should be my next step? So first, we are very much recommend on having an AWS assessment. You're welcome to speak with your AWS account or with NetApp account if you're a NetApp customer. And having this assessment, which is a 30-day data collection to discover your existing workloads. You will get a full summary of the discovered workload and then recommendation on the most fitting infrastructure to deploy on AWS and what would be the projected cost for that. And essentially it helps to expedite the migration, makes it more smoother. And this is a first next step if you're considering to have to go that path. Another option, which is not competing, by the way, it can be part of the same assessment, or also before or after having the assessment, is a tool called NetApp Workload Factory. It's another free of charge service. It's available on the link you see on the screen, and that will send in the chat on console.workloads.netapp.com. What it provides is a workload perspective analysis to either calculate TCO for the storage, but also from the entire workload. It can help planning the time migration. There is Migration Advisor, part of Workload Factory, and it also helps to implement best practices to your workload. It supports different workload. We'll not cover it today. I just want to give you a sneak peek on how it looks like and how it can help implement those best practices. So this is the homepage of Workload Factory. We'll go to the database workload and look on the inventory. We'll select the Oracle, and we'll see here the different databases we have. We can see it on different layers on the host, on the database, or the PDBs, but here now we'll look on the database options, and we select one of them, and we'll look on the well-architected dashboard. So what it does is essentially scan your environment and compare it to the best practices and provides automatic recommendation on where you can improve. So this is the most useful in our context for running a POC and make sure your POC is successful. So assuming you already deployed your FSx from ONTAP, running your Oracle databases and kind of testing it around, there's a lot of best practices. You can go to different blogs or technical reviews or other places to learn them, but you can also go to Workload Factory, which will look on your environment, see where the best practices were not implemented, and will allow you to implement those in a single click. So this is kind of sneak peek into that. You're welcome to try it as part of the next steps from here. With that, this is all what we have for you for today, and I think it's a good time to go to questions and to see what we have there.
Yeah, there's been a lot of questions, so thank you everyone first and foremost for sending them all in. Promise, and I've been trying to hammer through. I think there's only a few left, so let's get through those now if that's all right.
I see a question about Workload Factory license. So yes, it's a free of charge service. By the way, to start using it, there's also no need to provide any credential. You can try the TCO calculators. It's what's nice about it. It's look not only the storage layer, but in many cases on the entire stack of the workload. So again, TCO calculation, the full cost of ownership for that.
I think someone asked about NVMe over TCP. I think NVMe over TCP is available with the second generation FSx ONTAP file systems. Probably most customers might you might probably have been aware about the previous generation. So NVMe is kind of new. So, but it's supported with databases, and Snap Center supports NVMe over TCP.
Thank you, guys. You're welcome to keep the questions coming. We have a couple of more minutes to cover them, so you're welcome to continue send your questions.
I think, Martin, this might be one for you, the
Yeah,
AWS
sure.
OLA partner storage assessment.
Yes, so I'm trying to catch up. There's lots of absolutely. Yeah, so as part of the database assessment, yeah, the Oracle licensing gets covered, and the storage assessment is now under the one OLA family. So if engaging with us, just make sure that they're both ticked, and we'll run them in conjunction, and then you'll get the license saving and then a full storage assessment as well. So yeah. There's one question, honestly, there's one question I do not know the answer to, which I'll share but there's a post saying, did this partner migrate Pearson, with a link to a case study for Apps Association? Honestly, I don't know. Apologies, I wasn't personally involved in that, but the fact there's a case study would imply something has happened. I'll take that away if you can.
I'm not sure about the specific case, but definitely Apps Associate is a partner working with us, and it's a great partner. So yeah, it's definitely a path to go to.
Yeah.
So there are two questions, interesting questions. One is around the tiering pool for snapshot-only policies in the DR site. Absolutely. So if you are not using those DR snapshots for clones, then you can send the snapshots straight to the capacity pool here. If you are doing cloning on the primary site, then again, that will stop you from using tiering. You want to do it on the DR side. So yes, do it on the DR side. Then there's also another question around how do you reduce costs with VLDBs larger than 125 terabytes? Again, I've seen customers deploy hundreds of terabytes size databases on FSxN with the capacity pool, just with a few caveats in terms of how the process of starting the database might be slow and how you do that initial database start, because when you start the database, it might want to read a few items, and you don't want to pull all that data from the tiering, from the capacity pool into the SSD. So the way you reduce cost here, again, is to use tiering, but you want to tier, you want to make sure that the way you start the database is efficient, so you're not overrunning the SSD, and you're efficient in the way you leverage your storage. But if you want some more technical guidance on this, I'll recommend you pull in an AWS essay or a NetApp essay. We can definitely walk you through. I've got customers who have hundreds of terabytes, but using capacity pool just because it's more cost effective. One question: NVMe over TCP shows up to 35% higher IOPS, 25% lower latency, and 20% increased throughput compared to iSCSI. Okay, looks like it's a quote, but let me just caveat that with saying, on AWS, FSx ONTAP is built on top of EC2 instances that are using AWS Nitro cards and leveraging AWS's networking technology. So what that means is the storage layer between FSx and the backend storage and also the clients is already optimized, where the level of jitter that affects latency and some other IP-based protocol storage operations is way minimized. So with iSCSI, compared to NVMe over TCP, we only see a very little better performance for very shallow queue depth for NVMe workloads. Most iSCSI workloads will operate the same way, almost on the same level of throughput and IOPS with NVMe over TCP. That's just one behavior we've seen with NVMe over TCP in AWS. On-prem or in a different networking environment, I think it'll be a different experience. But the other thing you can maybe benefit from again is you are offloading the storage operations from the kernel, from the protocol stack down to the kernel. So rather than doing iSCSI protocols, you're offloading that down to the kernel. So you might benefit from maybe a little bit of CPU overhead or drop.
Yeah. There's a question about using capacity pool tiering policy for like snapshot only Oracle database to meet DR RTO. Would you like
yes,
to
yeah, I
relate
think
to that?
that's the one I talked about. Yes, for snapshots and for DR, yes, it's a very good use case. But beyond snapshots, I've seen customers actually store their actual Oracle data with capacity pool. Bear in mind, this will mean the queries for data blocks coming out of the capacity pool will mean double-digit millisecond latency. So you want to be very cautious about doing this, but if you have very large databases, I have seen customers who use capacity pool even for the actual data set itself. If you want consistent queries, don't do that. You've got to be very careful with how you leverage the tiering policies. So I think that's what Ade just mentioned. Seems you're suggesting placing database on tiered storage. No, it's only do that if you have very big databases and you know the SSD cost isn't really for you, and you can massage the way you load the data into FSx to optimize in the way that will fit your existing jobs and queries, and you're fine with the life cycle of data moving in and out of the capacity pool. Yeah. So
I
again,
saw there previously is a question about using FS6 ONTAP for EVS, and I would like to relate to that. We're focused today on databases and particularly on Oracle, but definitely FS6 ONTAP can be used for other workloads as well. It's certified for EVS. It also worked very well before that. It's still with the VMC, so definitely it's also relevant. Just not the focus of our session today. There will be, by the way, a webinar on this topic in 2 or 3 weeks, so we'll communicate that as well.
So team said, so NVMe over TCP, not really worth the effort. I agree with you. maybe if you want to future-proof, then yes, maybe that's worth the effort. But right now, I don't see any performance gains.
Yeah, lots of great questions.
Yes,
Keep
we
them
do have
coming,
some
guys.
blogs about this. Sag is asking about blogs. Yep. Yeah, blogs around. If you just Google FSx ONTAP Oracle AWS, you'll find 2 or 3 or 4 blogs talking about this across.
Yeah, and even one particularly on Snapchat, which we presented today.
So again, just to make sure I recap that point, someone anonymously has asked, expanding on capacity tiering, will this performance work well with OLTP databases? No, I think that just take it as no, that this won't help. This will not work well for transactional databases where you're doing some of the operations might be to the database is random, to the logs that's usually sequential. So again, that's if you have OLTP, then be careful. Don't use the tiering policy. Again, test everything before you make those drastic moves.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, so the bit about please sharing blog posts, I'm hoping everyone can see the answer. There's actually a, let me see if I can paste it into for everybody. There's a whole category that you can just see every blog post on FSXN. So go there and then you'll be able to check Oracle as part of that.
Yeah, someone is asking about Oracle on Windows, iSCSI. In general, yes. Please use iSCSI rather than block for database workloads, even especially in Windows, even more so. So I know Windows 2025, Windows is introducing the native NVMe driver, so you can watch that space and then test with that. So you have rather than going with the Starwind option. But yes, please use iSCSI.
Okay, thanks, Promise and Semyon. I think we're getting there with most of the questions.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of couple of questions around best practices, specifically on how to use a deep dive on tiering and this kind of stuff, which is great for perhaps additional topics to discuss. Yeah, we're getting to the end of the time. If there may be like last 1 or 2 questions that we'll pick up, and then we will be glad to continue the conversation offline. So, Promise, is there something that you would like to pick up?
Sorry, is there a question?
Is there one question that we still you would like to pick up from the list?
Let's see. I think I've addressed the capacity pool one. Cost savings with thin cloning. So, team, in terms of cost savings with thin cloning, yes, all clones are efficient. So you can't, unless you split the clone by default, when you create a clone, it's always going to be efficient. So there are cost savings, like you just mentioned, not capacity pool. Yes, so thin cloning should be efficient. That's not based on the capacity pool cost. Yes. So it looks like.
Okay.
So depending on, I think there's one more questions on NFS. So do we see any significant performance reduction with NFS? And how is NFS compared with iSCSI? I'm just going to assume you're referring in case of Oracle here. If you use NFS, we recommend you use direct NFS because that's more optimized for Oracle and file-based protocol to FSx ONTAP, not NFS in general. So you will see comparable performance, comparable as in less than 5% delta between NFS and iSCSI. iSCSI is usually the more performant protocol, but customers like the simplicity of NFS. So you wouldn't see a lot more difference if you used direct NFS. In terms of the way you want to set this up, there are best practices. So you refer to our blogs. The only thing I'll mention here is things like AWS's TCP flow limits. Networking can be challenging if you're using either iSCSI or even file-based protocol. So just make sure you're using multiplexing, either using multiple iSCSI sessions or NFS and Connect just to drive more throughput. So that's what I'll mention there. I think we're at time.
All right. Yeah. All right. We'll stop here. It's great to see all the questions coming through. We will be glad to address them offline. So guys, you're welcome to contact us or your representative at AWS or at NetApp. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much, Promise. Thank you, Martin. And we're looking forward for the next session. Stay tuned.